The case involving Renisha McBride has come to an end. The man that fatally shot her in her face has been found guilty of second-degree murder. Now, to give you some background information on this case, it involved a young woman who had gotten into a severe car accident, and then hours later, as she was looking for help while she was intoxicated, she ended up on the front door, or in front of the door of the home of Theodore Wafer. He's a 55-year-old. Now, this happened very late at night, and I want to give you the details of this story. So apparently, McBride appeared at Wafer's house in Dearborn Heights, adjacent to Detroit, around 4:30 a.m. on November 2nd. She crashed her car nearby earlier that night, and no one knows her whereabout in the several hours between the accident and her death. She was severely intoxicated. She knocked on Wafer's door, potentially looking for help. He came to the door and with a loaded shotgun and shot her in the face. Now, he claimed that he did so in self-defense, and of course there were some people arguing that, yeah, maybe it was self-defense because it is 4:30 in the morning, and if someone's knocking at your door, you might be frightened. However, to give you more details about what happened that night, even though he claims he was severely frightened, he never called 911, and also he changed his story. Initially, he told police officials that that him shooting her was an accident, and then later on he changed his story to say that it was self-defense.
His lawyer throughout the trial said, no, he was so scared, you have to understand, and he did it because of that. But then there's a couple of problems. First of all, as the Huffington Post explains, Wafer shot McBride through his locked screen door. Okay, so but you didn't ask any questions, and the first thing you did with someone at the door was you shot him in the face, right? Problem number two, he said during his testimony, quote, "I wasn't going to cower in my house. I didn't want to be a victim." So in other words, well, I'm not going to be a victim. So wait, I thought you were deeply afraid. Your lawyer said that he was afraid, quote, to the depth of his being. But now you're telling me you didn't want to cower, you wanted to be aggressive. You didn't want to be a victim. You were going to go out there without asking questions. You were going to shoot him in the face first, right?
Yeah. So the jury felt that his testimony was inconsistent. There were several, inconsistent portions of it, and so that's why they found him guilty of second-degree murder. Now, to give you a sense of how much time he could face behind bars, he does face a potential life sentence. However, of course, it's up to the judge's discretion. He could get a mandatory 2-year penalty for being in possession of a firearm while committing a felony. So he's going to get a minimum of 2 years. He's definitely going to get more than that. But the longest sentence he could get is life behind bars. He is 55 years old.
So there's a second-degree murder, there's the manslaughter, and then there's basically the gun charge, and that's felony murder, right? And so, or at least a 2-year penalty for being in possession of the firearm,
yes,
while committing the felony. Okay, so one more thing. The lawyer said it's not about Renisha, the girl who was shot in the face. It's about what her actions and other person's actions did to make Ted in fear for his life that night. You always need to go back and look at this through Ted's eyes. Okay, well, first of all, that's not really true. You have to look at it through everybody's eyes, right? But the first part of that is really interesting. It's not what Renisha did. It's what other people that are, presumably like her did. Other person's actions that made Ted fear for his life that night. So it seems like they're generally saying, like, what was he going to do? You got a 19-year-old black girl on the porch. Of course, because of other people's actions, he was afraid for his life. Like, I don't even understand that argument. That argument seems to be saying, if you see a young black girl on your porch, of course you're going to shoot her in the face, right? And of course they don't say black, they're not that stupid, right? But I mean, look at the words. Other people's actions did to make Ted fear for his life. What other people, right? It seems like that you're saying other people that kind of, are either in the neighborhood or look like her, etc.
Yeah.
So.
And by the way, I mean, they did not play their cards right, because I remember when we initially covered this story, I admitted that if I were in his position, I would be scared, right? If someone was knocking at my door at 4:30 in the morning, I would be frightened, right? But you have to think about the way that it was handled. The first thing I would do is grab my cell phone, call 911. He claims that he couldn't find his cell phone, which is why he didn't call 911, right? But I wouldn't think, oh my God, let me grab a gun and shoot this person through a locked door. Right? And also, in Michigan, they have the castle doctrine. And that is a way of self-defense if you're in your home and someone's trying to barge in. but there was no evidence that she was trying to break in. So that also went against his testimony and what he was claiming happened that night.
No one blames him for being scared.
Yeah.
But we do blame him, and apparently the jury blamed him to the point where they convicted of second-degree murder, of shooting first before asking any questions. I mean, how do you know it wasn't a kid? How do you know it wasn't your aunt who came in? Well, he might know because of the skin color, because the person didn't look like him, right? Or maybe because of the age, or maybe just because he didn't recognize her. But just because you don't recognize someone doesn't mean you shoot them in the face. So I got to be honest with you, I'm surprisingly happy about this verdict because there hasn't been a lot of verdicts to be happy about. There's been a lot of injustice in America. Not because, I don't know the guy, I don't have any personal animus towards him, but I like that we're setting a precedent that, hey, if somebody comes to your door, don't shoot them in the face. Okay, who are they? Ask a question first. Call the cops. You don't want to ask a question? You don't want to open the door? I get that. Call the cops. Don't shoot first.